Hi, welcome to this Generative AI Full Course tutorial. So today we will try to understand what is Generative AI, and we will make a comparison between AI and Generative AI, and we will also look machine learning and deep learning to understand Generative AI evolution. So let's look at what we are going to cover today. We'll try to understand what is artificial intelligence, and we'll try to understand some approaches to achieve artificial intelligence before machine learning and deep learning era. So here I have collected some approaches. There are more approaches to achieve artificial intelligence that were being used earlier to ML and DL. So we'll move to the machine learning and deep learning. We'll see that how this ML and DL approach work, and then we will move to the generative AI. Okay, and we will look at how generative AI actually works, and is there any difference between deep learning and generative AI? So let's first understand what is artificial intelligence. So basically, artificial intelligence is an umbrella term that contains all these things like machine learning, deep learning, generative AI, and nowadays very famous agentic AI. All these things will come under artificial intelligence. So let's first understand what is artificial intelligence. Basically, it's that tries to create machines capable of human intelligence, like human intelligence, like a human can reason. Okay, human has reasoning power, human has problem solving power, human can perceive, human can look, human can perceive different things, and human has natural language understanding. If a machine can achieve or mimic these intelligence, so we are going to say those intelligence will be artificial intelligence, because man-made any man-made intelligence will be called as artificial intelligence. But before that machine learning, there were different approaches to achieve AI. One of the earlier approach was rule-based approach. Using rule-based, you can create a system based on if, then, else type of the conditions. So you put the condition, and on the basis of the conditions, it's going to solve the problem. Okay. Other approach was to find an efficient search algorithm to solve a problem. Like search algorithm was an approach to solve a problem. Okay, so like breadth first search and A star, and there are many different approaches for the search algorithm was invented. So this was another approach. This was another attempt to achieve machine intelligence. And the next was the expert system. Expert system was a breakthrough in the artificial intelligence journey. We will discuss these things in detail, but now move to the machine learning and deep learning approach. Okay, so here you can see this thing, this rule based and some search algorithm are the expert system, and there are many other things that were being developed before get machine learning got popular. Okay, so some was the computer vision and natural language processing. So don't confuse with nowadays natural language processing with deep learning and computer vision with deep learning and machine learning. Okay, so these computer vision and NLP before machine learning, without machine learning and deep learning. So these were the approaches to achieve machine intelligence. One of the most important breakthrough or the achievement in the artificial intelligence was the invention of the machine learning and deep learning. Okay, so machine learning, we have to understand what is machine learning and different things. But before that, let me clear that these rule-based search algorithm and fuzzy logics also were there, and traditional NLP and computer vision. These were the approaches to achieve intelligence, but there was no concept of training on the data. So these systems were not able to understand, learn from the data. Means these systems were not trained on the data. So now the era of the data came, and the models and the systems were being trained on the data, and these systems, these machines were able to understand, were able to learn from the data. So that makes machine to understand and learn from the data. That was the era of the machine learning. Okay, so machine learning is something that if any machine or any model or any system that can learn from the past experience, here experience we are talking about the data. As we human learn from the experiences, machine learns from the data. Okay, so if any technique that these machine learning or the deep learning is basically a technique that enables machine to learn from the data. Okay, so how this learning happens in the machine learning and deep learning, let's try to understand a little more. So this, we have algorithm, we have statistical algorithm or different types of the algorithm. Some maybe neural network you have. So we are treating neural network or the deep neural network also as an algorithm. Okay, so some machine learning, some algorithms we have, and those algorithms are trained on the data, a huge data set we have to understand all these things. These were trained, algorithms are trained on the data, and after training, the algorithm is able to learn the pattern within the data. So this type of the learned algorithm we are going to call a model. Okay, so that model is now, after training, is now able to predict, now able to classify or cluster different, it can perform different tasks like regression, classification, clustering, and many more tasks. So in machine learning, for a particular task, a particular algorithm is trained on the data, and that trained algorithm, that is model, that model can perform a particular task. Okay, so that was the case. There were different use cases of machine learning, and it was a huge breakthrough in the journey of the artificial intelligence. Now came the neural network. Neural network was also a breakthrough. So neural network and a deep neural network we will understand in detail, because the foundation of the generative AI is based on the deep neural network and deep learning. Okay, so when algorithm is a neural network, and particularly deep neural network, that deep neural network is trained on the data, and we are going to get, after training, a trained deep learning model. So this deep learning model, when a deep neural network is trained and we are getting a model, so that model is called a deep learning model. And this process, all the process of training deep neural network, we have different types of the deep neural network, different for the images and the vision, and different for the natural languages. Okay, so you understand. So when a particular deep neural network is trained on the data, a huge data, so all these things we are going to talk about in deep learning. Okay. So in deep learning also, you can perform different tasks, like in machine learning, regression, classification, and clustering, and there are different other tasks that we can perform. Now comes generative AI. So basically, a generative AI is a technique to develop a model. Okay. So in generative AI, we are going to develop a model, an artificial intelligence model that can generate new content. Okay. So there are two different things that you have to focus on. That there are AI models that can generate new content. Okay. You all know that nowadays generative AI, like you are using ChatGPT. ChatGPT is basically an application of generative AI. Okay. So this Gen AI or generative AI can generate text, image, video, audio, code, and other things. Okay. So it going to generate, earlier the machine learning and deep learning techniques were able to perform some tasks, like they can classify different things. They can classify whether a human is diabetic or not. These machine learning and deep learning techniques were able to classify. These MLRDL techniques, models were able to predict something. Okay, they were able to make clusters. But now, what is the difference with generative AI? These Gen AI models can generate new things, like we human can write whole essay. Okay, so this generative AI can generate things. I suggest to go and check for the ChatGPT and different generative AI models, and you can generative AI applications, and you can find that what are the different generative AI applications. Okay, and how to make text, how to generate text, how to generate images, and different audio video things. Okay, now the other thing is that what is that AI model? Okay, we have taken machine learning model, we have taken deep learning models, but what these models that are able to generate new content? Gen AI models are the deep learning models, like they are trained deep neural network on huge data. Okay, so that is the case. So there are different models like large language models, transformers are there, various autoencoders are there, and again we have to understand all these things. We have to understand the journey of the large language models, starting from the generative models. Okay, so there were the generative models before deep learning models that were being used to generate some data, some training data or some sample data in statistics. Okay, so there were some examples. There are some examples of the generative models that were being used before deep learning. So there were some statistical and probabilistic models. Okay, so one is Gaussian mixture model and other is hidden Markov model. So these were the models that were able to generate some data. Okay, but nowadays whatever we are going to refer to generative AI, those generative AI models will be our deep learning models. So we will understand deep learning model in detail, and we looked at how deep learning approaches, how deep learning makes generative AI possible. Okay, so we are going to have a great journey. We will understand all the basics, all the things, all the programming, all the libraries. We are going to cover each and every model in detail. So stay tuned and let's see you in the next video.